Hi, everybody. This is Mary Claire Speckner with the Bartholomew County Public Library, and tonight we're hosting Sergeant Stephen Wheelis with the Indiana State Police out of District 42 out of Versailles. And Stephen's going to talk about the state police, what their role is, how they interact with other law enforcement agencies and some of the cases he's worked on, and also perhaps touch on what you need to have or know to be a state trooper. And if you have questions during the event, just type them in the comments section and we will get them to Stephen. Okay, go ahead. Thanks, Stephen.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. It's good that we have this technology to do, even with everything else going on, that even though maybe we can't meet in person, that we can still do it through Zoom and Facebook and things like that. So I appreciate you having me. A little bit about myself. Sergeant Stephen Wheelis with the Indiana State Police. I've been a trooper for a little over 20 years now, so I'm kind of towards the middle, heading towards the end of my career, I guess, although I got quite a few years left. So I applied for the state police when I was 20, got hired when I was 21, attended the Indiana State Police Academy. I was, it's one of those deals where I didn't really know what I wanted to do, as far as the giving people information on if they want to be a trooper. I didn't really know what I wanted to do when I was in high school. I originally went to school for education. I was going to be a teacher, is what I was going for. So went to college, and as things turned out, I kind of kept feeling my path leading towards law enforcement. I liked the idea of being not stuck in an office. Every day's different. Every day's exciting, that type of thing. So it just made me feel like law enforcement was, maybe the path for me. I had an older brother that was in law enforcement, and so, it kind of geared me towards it. So I applied and got accepted to the Indiana State Police Academy. Went through the 20-some week of the academy and got sent to the Versailles post. The Seymour area, Seymour post was kind of my home district, but I didn't really know where Versailles was. So, but got sent to the Versailles post and served there and really liked it there for a couple years. I got sent to the Riverboat casinos. That was back when troopers had to serve on the casinos. So I was on the casino at Rising Sun for a couple years before getting transferred back to my home district, which is Seymour. So in 2005, I started at Seymour and was a road troop and working Jackson, Bartholomew, Jennings County. While at Seymour, I became a canine handler. I had a dual purpose canine and had a dog for 8 or 9 years. In the meantime, in 2010, the Seymour post closed, and all of the Seymour district got absorbed by the Versailles district. So little did I never thought I'd be back at the Seymour or at the Versailles post, but there I was. So that was in 2010, and I still had my canine at that time, and so I worked much of the Versailles district with my dog. In 2015, my dog was getting older, about ready to retire, and it just so happens that our public information officer position came open at the post. So it worked out where I went through the promotion process. I was chosen to be the next public information officer for the Versailles post. And so I retired my dog at that same time. And so I've been the public information officer for the district for going on 6 years now. Some of my job responsibilities now, I issue all the news releases generated by the troopers in the Versailles district. The Versailles district is 10 counties. So I issue the news releases for all 10 counties. I also do much of this type of thing. I do public speaking to any organization or group that wants to have a trooper come and talk. So I'll come and speak about a wide variety of topics involving the state police. I also do interviews with the media, so newspapers, television, radio. Those requests all come to me, and I usually handle those interviews or find somebody that can handle those. The final part of my job is much of what I do is I spend a lot of my day on social media. So I have a Facebook, a Twitter account, where, I found, as technology progresses, we found that social media has been a good tool for our public information officers to get information out quickly to the district. Years ago, before I got this position, it took the public information officers emailing information out to the media putting it on radio, putting it in print, before the public got the information. Now the public can get the information straight from me, by simply following a social media account, where I can do that remotely from my car, my phone, and send the information out as far as crashes, road closures, that type of thing. So it's been a good tool to have. So a little bit about the state police. So a lot of question, I think we don't realize the confusion that a lot of people have. What is the difference between the state police, the sheriff's department, your city departments, things like that? How do we differ? How do we work together? So the Indiana State Police is a full police agency. Many states have a highway patrol. We're not highway patrol, we're state police, which means we have full authority, any part of the state. We have jurisdiction. We are confined by our districts. So like I said, the Versailles district is 10 counties. And then inside that district, our troopers are assigned a zone, which is usually 2 to 3 counties that they normally patrol. With that being said, we have jurisdiction around the state, and we're always available and able to be called to other parts of the state for assistance, or to work a case, or whatever the case may be. So we simply have a wider area that we can cover, based on the powers that are given to us. And then the sheriff's departments would be more individual counties, and then the city and towns will be basically enforcing the laws in their their jurisdiction, their town, their city that they work from. So, but that being said, we basically have the same powers. Now, your county sheriff's departments do have civil authority, I guess you'd call it. So the civil process is what they handle, and that's something we don't get involved in. We may get complaints a lot of times, people wanting to file a report or make a complaint to us that has to do with a civil process, and just have to go through the sheriff's department, because they're the ones that handle the civil process of things. But otherwise, our police authority is the same. People may ask, well, who do you call if you want to make a report, file a case? Well, can you have an investigation conducted? It's really up to you. We're going to direct it to the agency that has the authority, or that covers that area. Well, yes, that does overlap. So typically, we're going to overlap with the county. We're going to overlap with the city department. So it's sometimes, it doesn't matter so much in a lot of cases who investigates it, as long as it's in the jurisdiction of that agency. And then, it also depends on who's available at the time. If we get a call, a report of something, and we're busy all of our troopers are busy on something, we may direct it to a sheriff's department or another agency if you need assistance immediately. Whereas they will do the same if it's something they can't get to. They may check and see if we're available to respond and handle the call. So now, as far as a working relationship between agencies, overall, I think we all really have a good working relationship. We can't do this job without the assistance of those local agencies, and likewise, I don't think they can, really do the job without, I still lost my train of thought. So they, they'll need us to assist them also, because a lot of times our officers are the only one. We may only have one trooper working. Well, if he needs assistance, it's going to come from another agency, most likely in a certain area. Small town may only have one or two officers working. We're going to be the ones providing them assistance. Also, a lot of times if there's a big case, your murder investigations, armed robberies, your more serious cases, a lot of times those do get it funneled to the state police. And that's not something where the state police is coming in and taking over an investigation, but it is a situation where they, we do have a lot more resources just because of how many officers we have around the state. And we can pull those officers from other districts. So, we can provide as much manpower as we need to thoroughly conduct an investigation. So, that's why a lot of those investigations do end up in our hands, just because of the resources we have to make sure those serious cases are investigated thoroughly. I did see, I think maybe there was a question that popped in.
Yes, if you click on chat,
I
it'll-
see it here, I think. Have you ever been in trouble for making any of your Facebook posts? I enjoy them, by the way. Thanks, Daniel, for your question. No, I haven't. No, we are, like I said, Facebook's a good tool. Social media is a good tool. And, I do have rules that I have to go by. We have SOPs that guide what we're allowed to post. That being said, I have to, I don't want to pick and choose what gets posted. So a lot of times people, and I don't read many of the comments, just because one, I don't have the time and, that type of thing. But, people wonder why things get posted, or why, we only post stuff that's public information that can be released. And I'm not going to pick and choose what gets posted unless there's a legitimate reason why something shouldn't. An ongoing investigation where we don't want that information to be out yet. I'm not going to post that just because that may hinder what we're working on. And then, I'm confined by certain rules as far as how much we can post. And that hurts me sometimes, I can tell, because some people, want to jump to conclusions, or you want to make comments about why this happened, why that happened. Well, we know more information. Unfortunately, we just can't always release it. And, that I know that gets the rumor mill going and people talking, but hopefully people understand that there's a method to our madness, and we know what's going on, and we just can't provide every last piece of information, because we do have to leave a lot of that up to the courts to decide and make sure that all gets worked out. And then there's still stuff that we need to hold on to for the case as the case proceeds. So that's a good question, Daniel. All right. Mary Claire, did you have something else specific? I don't want to just keep rambling. I want to provide the answers to questions you specifically have. So
I
let me
thought
know.
maybe you could talk about some of the cases you've been involved with that people might be aware of.
Oh boy. Yeah, I've been around for 20 years. So there's a lot of,
I know.
it seems, I guess it seems like, well, this career's been pretty, 20 years, it's been pretty tame. But when I think back on it, there has been, I've really been involved in everything there is to be involved with. And I, used to laugh at the old timers when I came on. Oh, I've arrested murderers and bank robbers and done this and done that. And, at the time you're like, yeah, sure you have, you've done all that stuff. Well, truly, you do after you work this job so long, you are involved in all those things. So, as far as specific cases, oh boy, trying to think of some of the most notable. It seems like most notable are kind of minor things that I've posted on Facebook that have, for some reason, picked up a lot of attention. I have a couple of crashes I was involved with that I ended up getting awards for, and I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but just situations where it goes to show the training that we have, that officers from other police departments have, that really, you're trained for it, and you don't really realize how much your training helps in a situation until you respond to a scene, and you have to take action, because we quickly realize, and we're told this in the academy, but when we respond to a traumatic scene, people are hurt, they're undergoing trauma, they don't know how to react. We find that witnesses and other bystanders, also don't know how to act. They don't know they know something needs to be done, but they can't quite, they haven't trained themselves to be ready to act in certain situations. So I've been to a couple of crashes. I had a crash on I-65. Boy, it's been years ago now. But a car rolled and a lady was trapped and her head was pinned under the vehicle. And it was one of those situations where, we didn't have time to wait for the other emergency personnel. We were there pretty quick. Well, how do you get a vehicle off of somebody that, they're basically in a life-threatening situation? So we were able to actually, and I didn't have anything special, but I had a little scissor jack in my car. So we grabbed our floor jacks and we ended up wedging those underneath the vehicle and using those to get the weight off of the lady until she was able to be freed. So it really, and relatively minor injuries after we got her out. So it was one crash. And I had another situation where a lady had gone off into the water and was trapped in her vehicle that was sinking. And, I just happened to be in the right place at the right time, I suppose, and got there and was able to, get her out of the vehicle and to safety. So there's a couple of the maybe more higher profile incidents that I've been on. I'm trying to think as far as criminal investigations. Like I said, I had a canine for quite a few years, and they always tell us in canine training the dog's going to lead you to the confrontation or to the problem, and that's really true. The dog always, is going to lead you to where the confrontation is, whether it's finding drugs in a vehicle, doing a track where it's going to take you to where that criminal is. So lots of incidents where, my dog was involved. And I remember one specific incident where a man had fled from a vehicle. I was assisting another agency. I responded. And so we started to track this individual. Well, my dog was, I was very out of shape, but my dog kept going and we followed, and luckily there was snow on the ground, so we could confirm that the dog was on the right track. But it was a few miles that we went through the state forest and eventually captured the guy. So and in that situation, he was in really need of medical assistance because the conditions, it was snow and freezing temperatures, and so he needed to be caught soon to get him medical assistance. So the dog is a good tool, and it's found a lot of criminals, a lot of people that have fled, and it's also been really beneficial to our work to combat the drug issues that faces all of our communities. While my dog was retired and has since passed away, we do have other canines that we work with that are patrolling consistently on I-65, other areas of our district. looking for drugs that are passing through, getting into our communities every day. So it's a good tool to have. I see another question here. Let's see, what do you like the most about your job and what do you like least about your job? Yeah, that's a good question. It's a lot of times when I talk to career classes, I just talked to one yesterday, I think, where that's one of the questions that always comes up. Want to know what's the good part of the job, what's the bad part? I think my favorite part of the job, my job is a little bit different now because I have more an administrative job, but as far as being a trooper, every day's different. It's not, and nothing against those people that sit in an office or, those types of things, but every day's different. It's not the same thing every day. And that's what really appealed to me about the job is, being outside, and the unexpected is going to happen. And, you don't know when that is, but it will happen. So that's a big part of it. I also like the freedom and flexibility that we have. So, we don't have supervisors that are looking over our shoulder nonstop all the time. And so you can kind of, one day you may, want to go work some traffic. Another day you may decide, you know what, I'm going to take a break from that. I'm going to work in a criminal investigation. I'm going to take today and get my paperwork done. There's all sorts of things that you can do, and you can find your own career path of what you want to do with the state police. That's the nice thing about our agency. And for those possibly seeking a career is that we have all the different avenues that you can go down. So we have crime scene investigators. We have detectives that just work on big investigations. We have a canine department. We have aviation. So we have aircraft if someone has a pilot's license. There's SWAT teams. We have a bomb squad. It's really unlimited as far as what your career path is, and you can find your specialty that you like and head down that path. So that's why it's a good career. It's also the satisfaction of being able to help people. I know that's kind of cliche, and a lot of people, I want to help people. Well, it's very, very fulfilling when you see that situation where someone is going through something traumatic, dealing with a rough situation, having a bad day, and you can be the first one that they come into contact with, and you can be the calm to the storm that they're going through, and help them and solve their problem and make them realize maybe it's not quite as bad as what they feel like it is at that moment. So it's always good to help people and get satisfaction from doing that.
Stephen, I have a question.
Sure.
You had mentioned that we have state police in Indiana and other states have what state?
Highway patrol,
Highway
state
patrol.
something like that.
So so there's a difference?
Yeah, and I not being from one of those states that have a highway patrol, I don't know what they're confined to, but oftentimes they won't work your county roads. They can't work crashes on their county roads in town. They pretty much are confined to the interstate system and the state highways. There is some exception to that, I think, where they are permitted to work some investigations, but it's not a full police agency where they're going to go out and they're not going to go out and take a theft report. They're not going to go work a burglary. That's just not part of their job responsibilities. It's more for highway safety, working those crashes, patrolling those roads to make sure people are in compliance with those laws. So again, I don't know the total difference, but that's some of the big things that I've heard from the troopers that I've spoken to in those other agencies for their states.
And you had mentioned that you can help other law enforcement agencies on some of their cases. Do those agencies mind, or do they feel like you're interfering?
Yeah, and that's what I kind of said earlier, that I don't, it's not that we're taking over, and for the most part, the other agencies, we have a really good working relationship with them, and they're really glad that we're there to assist them. Just because it is a resource thing and manpower thing. It's hard for some of these agencies to take, their officers that are working the road and have other calls pending, or, they may only have 1 or 2 detectives for their whole department. And just, I know from my involvement with some of seems like over the past 2 or 3 years, we've had so many homicides and things like that that really take so much man hours to work. And seeing what our investigators, the hours they put in and the leads they track down, while I can't really release a lot of that information about where they're going and what they're doing, I see it and I know how many hours they put in, and it just logistically for a smaller agency to do that would be tough. So they know that, and I think they're appreciative of us being willing to help, and we continue to work with them on the case, and we'll use their investigators and their resources also, because we all have the same goal in mind in the end.
Stephanie, are there any other questions?
I see a couple more posted here that I'll
Okay.
speak to. Let's going back to the other one. She asked about what I like least about the job. Boy, I always used to say the paperwork. Paperwork was always it's fun going out and arresting the bad guy, or be involved in stuff, but having to sit down and type a report's not the funnest thing. I don't do so much of that anymore, although I do spend a lot of time on my computer and typing and things. But the stress and the stress is a big part of this job that the guys have to figure out how to deal with. So it's important that guys, do handle that stress and realize that it is going to happen, and you will have incidents that are going to stress you. And it's hard to leave this job at work. It's one of those jobs where you can't help but take it home with you. I don't talk much about my job, things I see or do with my family. For one, I don't think my wife really wants to know too much. And, by the time I get home, I'm not really wanting to talk about work. So I try to keep it at work. So, but the stress and, even when you go home, your phone's always there, and you're going to get called, you're going to get questions, you're always going to be, even when you're at home, it's hard to completely get away from the job. So part of that's enjoyable, but part of it, it's you're a police officer 24/7, and it's hard to leave it at work. So the other question I see, what advice would you give high school students who are interested in pursuing a career in law enforcement? Good question. Like I said, I just spoke to I think they were 8th graders I spoke to a couple days ago. So we did talk about some of these same things. Obviously you want to keep your nose clean when you're in high school. You think, well, I have a long time to decide what I want to do, or, I'm going to have fun now, but you always got to keep in mind that, especially if you're interested in a career in law enforcement, especially, I can't speak with other agencies, but the state police, we conduct a thorough background, and we're going to find everything about you. So you want to make sure you keep clean. Now, that's not to say that just because you've gotten in trouble in high school or did something you regretted or stupid, that's going to be something automatically eliminates. We all have done dumb stuff, but main thing is you're honest about it, and don't try to hide anything. You need to have a plan for what you're going to do immediately after high school. To be a state trooper, and most police agencies are about the same as far as requirements. You have to be at least 21 years of age. You have to be a U.S. citizen. You have to have a valid driver's license, and you have to at least have a high school diploma or GED. Now, when I came on, you had to have the equivalent of associate's degree or military service. We found that we were losing a lot of qualified applicants because those, people that graduated high school, they would go and they had to do something until they were old enough to apply, and a lot of them would find a career in the meantime, or go into the military or do something else, and we were missing out on some applicants. So we needed more applicants, so it dropped to where it's just a high school diploma or GED. That being said, most people graduate high school at 18. You got 3 years that you got to do something until you are old enough to apply. So I would recommend having a plan, whether that's going into the workforce, military, college, that's up to you. But you need to do something. We get a lot of good applicants from the military. So military is not a bad option for someone interested in this career. Go into the military, serve a few years until you're eligible to apply. It's always good to have a degree also. So, I would encourage people that are college material to go to college. Doesn't mean you have to major in criminal justice. We have a lot of troopers that majored in business or education, you name it. We have people that have psychology, sociology, that major in those other things, and that's not going to hurt you when it comes to applying, but it will give you something possibly to fall back on. So if you get a sociology degree and then come apply and get hired, it's not always cut out for, people aren't always cut out for it. They may start their career and realize, this just isn't what I'd hoped, or, I've seen stuff that I never thought I would see, been involved in situations that scare me. Whatever the case may be, it may not be the career for them, and it's good to have something to fall back on. So that's what I would encourage, diversify your what you go through now. So it leaves yourself open to other options, when it comes to applying, that you're not, this isn't your only hope. And then if not, you're done for. So have different options available to you, and that will work out better for you. Now, I will say, as far as our process, like I said, once you meet all those requirements, our application process is done through our website, the Indiana State Police website. You can enter your information on there. It's all done electronically, and you'll get notified for the selection process. When I came on, it used to be about a 6-month process, but that was back before email really was big. So I had to wait for a letter in the mail to say whether I made it to the next step. But you'll get led through all the different background steps. So a written test, an oral interview, a polygraph examination, physical fitness testing, are all some of the steps that you have to go through. If you make it through all those and still are in the process, then you will get sent to the State Police Academy. That's 20, I don't know what it is now, 22, 23 weeks that you'll be in the academy. They'll train you everything, train you from scratch, teach you everything that you need to know to be a good police officer. And then after you graduate the academy, then you'll get assigned to a district where you will be with a field training officer that will train you in real life situations, out on the streets. And then after 3 months, if they pass you, then you'll receive your first police car and you'll be on solo patrol at that time.
I have a question
Go
again.
ahead.
Is it true that you can go 5 miles over the speed limit and not get a ticket? I know you've been asked that before, I'm sure.
I have been asked that before. That is a question a lot of times people want to know, what am I safe doing and what am I not, and I can't sit here and legally tell you that you're fine going 5 miles over the speed limit or 10 miles over the speed limit. All I can tell you is the speed limit is the speed limit, and you can get stopped for going 1 mile per hour over that speed limit. Do we do that very often? Not very often, just because, particularly on the interstates, there's plenty of people going well over the speed limit. We're going to pick those individuals that really need to be stopped and to speak to them. So while I won't say that you're okay going 5 miles over the speed limit, you need to, that is the law, and that is what you could get stopped for. I don't want to tell you you can go 5 or 10 miles over the speed limit and you get stopped tomorrow going 10 miles over the speed limit, and then you come back to me and say, you told me I could. So I can't do that. So the speed limit is the speed limit, and unfortunately, you know, we won't say anything more than that. So
Okay, so as a state police person, can you give speeding tickets? Like if I'm driving in Columbus and I'm speeding, can you pull people over?
yes, yes. So anywhere in the state police can
Okay.
legally work. And that's another thing that I had never really realized till I was working the road and stop someone on a county road. Well, you can't do that. This is a county road, or this is in the city or a town. No, state police is statewide, border to border, and we are fine patrolling any of those areas and enforcing the laws in those areas of public roadways. So there, may be a few exceptions of certain roads where traffic laws wouldn't necessarily apply, but for the most part, any public roadway. There was another question here. Do you ever have to testify in court? I don't so much anymore. That would probably be one of the things about the job I like the least, for a variety of reasons. But yeah, I do testify in court at times. Now, normally it's just traffic court, something like that, because I don't work many criminal investigations. Most of the criminal cases I was lead on or have been have gone through the court systems already. But yeah, you do have to testify some, and we do some training through the academy and elsewhere on testifying in court. The unfortunate thing with court, I'm trying to walk on eggshells here, but you can do the most perfect legal investigation, do everything by the book, and it's still going to be scrutinized, and you're going to have someone in court trying to say that you're the most crooked worst person that ever was. It's part of the job. I understand that, but that's frustrating when you do have a career where you have integrity and you do everything by the book and still get scrutinized like that. So it's something we deal with. But relatively, court is a small part of our job. We find that most things, they usually get pled out in court. People will plead to something else or a smaller offense or something like that. So really, as far as appearing in court, it's a small part of our job and not something we have to do very often. Guys that write a lot of tickets usually will be in court more often just because of traffic court and the volume of people that take traffic court tickets to court. So what do you wish civilians knew about interacting with law enforcement? And again, walking on eggshells a little bit, because I can't give a political opinion on, some of the things that we're hearing in the news and that are going on in society right now. But, 99.9% of police officers you deal with are going to treat you with respect and we're human just like you are. And, so we're going to treat you with respect. We ask that you just treat us with respect in return. Things will normally work out well. It seems to be situations where, people want to not cooperate, resist, things like that is when it develops into something more. So, if you just treat the police officers with respect, even if you don't think they're in the right, that's what the court's for. As far as stopping a car and issuing a citation for a violation, the court's the place to argue those things out, not the side of the road. So, just treat the police officer with respect, but then you have every right to, contest it in court if it's something you disagree about the way that, things were handled. But we're in this together and, we all have the same goal in mind to keep our community safe, and we're going to do what we think is right to do that. So.
Stephen, when your dog retired, did you get to take it home? Did you keep the dog until he died or she
I
died?
did. Yeah, and he was still in pretty good health when I retired him, but I knew he was getting towards the end of his career. Getting in and out of the car a lot was how, starts to wear on those dogs. The hips and things of jumping in and out of the car. I could start to see signs where he was having difficulty getting in and out of the car, but was still in fairly good health. So the timing worked out well. And having the dog for so long, I was able to keep him, and just lived a pretty good life at our house. But then he got to the point where, he just couldn't. His hips and his back were gone, where he just couldn't get up, and he just wanted to lay around and couldn't get up and move, and so it finally became apparent that it was time to put him down, and so that's what I had to do. That was 2 or 3 years ago now. So
I don't think, did we have any more questions, Stephanie?
Nope.
No.
I'm not seeing anything on there.
So. Well, we want to
Trying to
thank you,
think if there
Stephen.
was-
Wanna
Yeah, thank you for
taking out
having me. I
time.
was trying to think if there was anything else I
Yeah.
didn't cover that you had mentioned. But I think that's pretty much an overview of where I come from and what I do and what, our agency as a whole does.
Okay, and this is on our Facebook page, so it'll be there for a while. If people want to come
Okay.
back and look at it, they're welcome to do that.
Right.
Yeah,
So,
thanks a lot. We really appreciate your time.
well, yeah, thank you for
Okay.
having me. We'll
And
have
for
to
what you
line
guys
up something
do.
in the future. So,
Yep, thanks a lot. Have a good night.
all right, you too.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
bye.